Welcome back to Coronation Daily episode. Imagine this. A murderer is walking free through Weatherfield. The police think they're getting closer. The evidence appears to be falling perfectly into place. A teenager is arrested. A young woman is ready to confess. The community thinks justice is finally coming. But what if every single one of them is wrong? What if the person who killed Theo Silverton has been standing in plain sight all along? Because tonight, we're diving into the murder mystery that has turned Coronation Street upside down. A mystery filled with trauma, secrets, fear, manipulation, and one devastating question. Did Brodie Michaelis really kill Theo Silverton? Or is he about to become the latest victim of a crime he didn't commit? And trust me, the deeper you look into this story, the more terrifying it becomes. Because this isn't just a murder investigation anymore. It's a war for the truth. And that truth is destroying lives before it's even revealed. But then everything changes. Let's start with Theo Silverton. Because understanding Theo is the key to understanding this entire mystery. Theo wasn't simply a villain. He was something much more dangerous. He was a psychological predator. A man who fed off control. A man who thrived on fear. A man who seemed incapable of feeling powerful unless somebody else was suffering. For months, viewers watched Theo slowly dismantle Todd Grimshaw's confidence. His independence. His identity. Piece by piece. Until Todd barely recognized himself. And when Theo's body was finally discovered, many viewers felt relief. A guilty relief. The kind that comes when a dangerous chapter finally appears to be over. But that relief didn't last. Because Theo's death created something even more explosive. A mystery. And suddenly everyone had motive. Everyone had anger. Everyone had a reason. Which means almost anyone could be guilty. And that's when things take a darker turn. Because while everyone was focused on Summer Spellman, the police suddenly changed direction. Their new target? Brodie Michaelis. A teenager already carrying more baggage than most adults. The evidence looks devastating. Todd's missing phone. Recovered from a pawn shop. Brodie's fingerprints all over it. And just like that, the spotlight shifts. The headlines write themselves. The bad boy becomes the prime suspect. But here's the problem. None of it feels right. Think about it. If Brodie murdered Theo, why keep the phone? Why walk into a pawn shop? Why leave a trail so obvious that even a rookie detective could follow it? Murderers hide evidence. Panicked teenagers sell it. There's a difference. And I think that's exactly where this story is trying to mislead us. Because Brodie isn't a mastermind. He's impulsive. He's reckless. He's damaged. But those things don't automatically make him a killer. In fact, Brodie might be the easiest suspect imaginable. The perfect fall guy. The kid everyone expects to fail. The kid everyone expects to get arrested. The kid nobody wants to defend. And that makes him dangerous in a completely different way. Because when someone already has a bad reputation, people stop asking questions. They stop looking deeper. They assume guilt. And that's exactly what might be happening here. What happens next is heartbreaking. Brodie's entire life has been shaped by instability. By disappointment. By abandonment. He spent years learning one painful lesson. Nobody expects anything good from him. Not teachers. Not authority figures. Not society. So when he's arrested, look closely at his reaction. That isn't just fear. That's resignation. The look of somebody who believes the verdict was decided long before the evidence appeared. Psychologically, Brodie is fascinating. Because underneath the anger, underneath the bravado, is a terrified teenager desperately trying to figure out who he is. Especially now that Kit Green has entered the picture. And that's where this story becomes even more emotionally charged. Because Kit isn't just investigating a murder anymore. He's investigating his own son. Just think about the pressure. Every piece of evidence is personal. Every new lead is a potential betrayal. Every decision carries consequences that extend far beyond the police station. If Brodie is guilty, Kit has failed him. If Brodie is innocent, Kit has failed to protect him. Either way, Kit loses. And that psychological conflict is absolutely fascinating. Because Kit has built his identity around solving problems. Around being the man with answers. But now, the biggest question in Weatherfield might destroy everything he believes about himself. But that may not be the whole truth. Because while Brodie faces arrest, Summer Spellman is preparing to do something even more shocking. She's ready to plead guilty. Let that sink in. A young woman who may be innocent. A young woman already carrying years of emotional trauma. Is preparing to sacrifice her freedom. Not because she's necessarily guilty. But because she's exhausted. Broken. Defeated. And that's what makes this so tragic. Theo Silverton's influence didn't end when he died. Still poisoning people. Still destroying lives. Still controlling the narrative. Even from beyond the grave. Summer's decision feels less like a confession and more like surrender. The surrender of somebody who has been emotionally battered for so long that prison almost seems easier than fighting. And honestly, that's terrifying. Because if Summer takes the blame for something she didn't do, Theo wins. Even in death. And that's exactly why I don't believe the story is as simple as the police want us to think. Because there are too many loose ends. Too many suspicious faces. Too many people behaving strangely. Let's talk about Sarah Platt. Because something feels off. Really off. The anxiety. The tension. The evasive answers. The way she seems permanently on edge. Is it grief? Stress? Or guilt? What if Sarah knows more than she's admitting? What if she saw something that night? What if she's protecting someone? Or worse, what if she's protecting herself? Then there's Gary Windass. Weatherfield's self-appointed sheriff. The man who hates bullies. The man who believes justice should be delivered even when the law struggles to catch up. Gary had motive. Gary had history. Gary had every reason to see Theo as a threat. And if Gary decided Theo needed to be stopped, would he really lose sleep over it? Or would he convince himself he was protecting the street? Because that's what makes Gary so dangerous. He doesn't see himself as a villain. He sees himself as a hero. And heroes are capable of frightening things when they believe they're right. But then everything changes again. Because the pathology report throws the entire case into chaos. Blunt force trauma. Before the fall. Meaning somebody didn't simply push Theo. Somebody hit him. Hard. That transforms this from an accident into something much darker. Much more deliberate. Much more violent. And suddenly the suspect list expands. Because now we're looking for rage. We're looking for desperation. We're looking for somebody who reached breaking point. And on this street, there are plenty of candidates. Daniel Osborne is another fascinating possibility. Not because he's the obvious suspect, but because he's unraveling. The truth teller posts have pushed him to the brink. He's drinking, lashing out, damaging relationships, and spiraling deeper into chaos. The writers keep putting Daniel front and center, which immediately makes me suspicious. Because Coronation Street loves misdirection. While we're focused on Daniel's collapse, the real killer could be quietly slipping through the cracks. It's storytelling's sleight of hand. And it works brilliantly. But here's my biggest theory. Brody didn't kill Theo. Brody found the phone. That's it. A bad decision. Not murder. A stupid mistake. Not a life sentence. I think Brody stumbled onto evidence. Saw an opportunity. And did what Brody has always done. Acted first. Thought later. That's why the pawn shop matters. It's too messy. Too careless. Too obvious. It screams theft. Not homicide. Which means the real killer is still out there. Watching. Waiting. Listening. And perhaps feeling very relieved that Brody is taking all the attention. My prediction? Brody will eventually be cleared of murder. But not before the investigation destroys what's left of his fragile trust in the adults around him. Kit and Brody's relationship will suffer. Summer's confession will create fresh chaos. And when the truth finally comes out, the reveal won't just expose a killer. It will expose the emotional damage Theo left behind. Because that's what this story is really about. Not murder. Trauma. Not violence. Consequences. Theo Silverton spent months destroying people emotionally. Now those same broken people are trapped inside a murder investigation. And the lines between victim and suspect have become dangerously blurred. As we head toward the explosive reveal promised later this summer, one thing feels increasingly certain. Weatherfield is hunting the wrong person. Brody Michaelis may be guilty of many things. Bad decisions. Petty crime. Poor judgment. But murder? I'm not convinced. Not even close. Because somewhere on those cobbles, the real truth is waiting. And when it finally emerges, the shockwaves could change Coronation Street forever.